Taurus, welcome to your October reading. So what I'm going to do with this reading is slightly different to my previous ones. What I'm going to do is have a look at the some of the astrology that is associated with this upcoming full moon in Aries, and then we're going to do a little geomancy reading just to kind of close things off and find out if there are any particular messages that want to come through for you. So as you can see, I've got some new cards. This is the Arcana of Astrology by Goodchild, I think. So quite useful because it helps me to sort of illustrate the messages of each of the signs quite nicely. So at this particular full moon, we've got the energy of Taurus. Well, we've got the energy of Aries that's happening. First of all, the moon will be in your 12th house. So this is the quadrant here. And this is all about the psyche. It's about institutions such as libraries, psychiatric institutions, hospitals, that kind of thing. Usually institutions, it can be prisons too. So it tends to be institutions that involve a removal from the world. So there can be an escape. So for example, a nunnery or some kind of spiritual retreat, for example. Or it could be because, you know, you've been incarcerated, and so you're kind of withdrawing from the world, not necessarily voluntarily, but, you know, out of, you know, being punished or whatever. But this is also the realm that kind of is almost the kind of the ocean. So it's where we connect to all that is, you know, as opposed to this is the drop, this is the ocean, this is a drop in the ocean kind of thing. And then because full moons always happen in a straight line across the line of the horizon, or, you know, with the earth in the middle, the sun will be in the opposite sign of Libra, and that will be in your 6th house of work, health, pets, as well as routines and kind of everyday rituals. So we could see some shifts in this particular 2-week period with regards to those matters. So very often this is about work. There can be a change in work environment, there can be a change in work conditions. Sometimes you know, colleagues come and go. Maybe we decide to get a new job. But equally, as I say, it could be about something else that influences your everyday routine or ritual. So that could be, you know, deciding to exercise, for example, to change things up so that you go for a run every night. You know, it can be a lot of different things. But with the sun here, we're talking about essentially masculine energy. So it tends to be expressed either in the external world through taking actions. It can be things that occur, perhaps initiated by a male figure, because the sun is usually about a male figure, sometimes an authority figure like a boss, for example. Whereas the full moon, the sort of lunar energy, I mean, it's exalted in your sign. So with it being in Aries, it might be feeling a touch out of sorts. You know, it's not really very happy in a fire sign. But I think what it's doing is it's almost kind of asking you to kind of go within and maybe attend to, if you think of yourself as a plant, you know, to kind of attend to the roots so that you get shoots in spring kind of thing. So it's that darkness before the dawn kind of energy. But I think, you know, on the whole, for you, this is almost the culmination of a process that's been going on for quite a long time, because of course full moons tend to be about things coming to a head, things coming to fruition after, you know, the 2 weeks of the waxing moon cycle. This is the culmination of that point. So it's interesting that we've got this fixed star diadem, which is literally a crown happening. And I do think one of the major themes of this full moon is going to be self-empowerment. So that's possibly how this 12th house moon is going to work, is that you're going to realize a few things about yourself. You're going to come into your own power and realize that, you know, power starts internally first and foremost, and then is expressed and radiated out into the world through the solar plexus and so on. But anyway, let's get into your reading and see what wants to come through, and we'll kind of take it from there. So let's put the sun and the moon in their houses and sort of get on with your reading. Maybe put those over there because it's a nice reminder, isn't it? A nice visual reminder of what houses the sun and the moon are going to be in. So I've had a piece of quartz sitting on the cards, and we'll do, you know, what's kind of turning into my routine, my little ritual is to do the geomancy reading and then to have a look at the planets and aspects that affect or that are kind of active during this particular moon phase, and then we'll clarify with some trinkets. So I won't necessarily turn over all the cards because I'm trying to be quite focused in terms of what we look at. And then I've also done a general astrology overview because October is quite an important month. It's a bit of a power month when it comes to cosmic activities, lots and lots going on. So you might want to go and check that out, and it'll help to, I think it'll supplement this reading quite nicely. You'll have the above and below, and you know, you can kind of put those together to get a flavor for your month. Right, so that's really speaking to me. Okay, let's see what is going on with the sun and the moon. Okay, so it does look to me as though you've definitely been ruminating about something, possibly obsessing about it. Maybe something has happened here in your sixth house of work or to do with health, and it's kind of got you into a little bit of a up in your head, let me put it that way. You know, here in the sixth house we've got Corsair, and this is associated for me with the need to cut back, with loss. So there could have been a job loss, for example. That wouldn't be unusual given, you know, the times that we're kind of in. It can also be about, you know, having to cut back. So maybe you've decided you want to lose weight, for example. So, you know, that means kind of trimming the portion sizes down, for example. I mean, it's interesting that it's ruled by Saturn in Capricorn, and of course Saturn has just gone direct after being retrograde since I think about April, May. So I think it's drawing your attention to Saturn, that there's a need here for self-discipline, mastery, a need, like a less is more kind of an energy going on here with the sun. So you know, and you know, for me, I think what's also interesting is, you know, if you think about this as being the sun in Libra, the Saturn itself is actually exalted in the sign of Libra. There's a kind of an overlap between the energy of Saturn and the energy of Libra, in the sense of the judge, or somebody who kind of metes out, not necessarily punishment, but who kind of says, okay, enough of that, we need to do more of this. So it can be your kind of internal authority, but equally it could be an authority figure, especially with the sun here. As I said, this can be sometimes a male authority figure or some kind of boss. So it's possible that you know, you may either find that over the next 2 weeks that you know, a boss is kind of, maybe somebody's going to leave the company, for example, or you know, because we're talking about institutions, it's possible that you work for some kind of institution or organization, such as, for example, the NHS or a hospital, or you know, a school, or a psychiatric institute or a library or something of that ilk, and maybe there's been a bit of a shake-up in management, or will be. But whatever it is, it seems to potentially kind of get you into a place of either catastrophe thinking or just of kind of being a little bit worried. So maybe it kind of gets all your control issues going with Rubeus here. So Rubeus is water energy, which is fitting for a moon, kind of a moon position. And I think it's interesting that, you know, we're talking about a full moon in Aries because this is Mars rule, but this is Mars in Scorpio. So I think it's kind of saying that whatever is happening is kind of triggering all your stuff around control. So maybe you know, if there are kind of retrenchments or redundancies, it's almost like the situation is beyond your control, and that's making you feel a little bit helpless. And so as a result, you're overcompensating emotionally by trying to sort of control, because that's what that's what anxiety is we don't feel like we're in control of a situation or circumstances. And so the result is that everything else in our lives we try to control to make ourselves feel less afraid and more secure. It's sort of natural. But I think given that given the astrological energies of this particular month, I think it's fair to say that whatever is happening now is largely beyond our control. It's too big. The sort of machinations, the trends that are in play at the moment are kind of too big either to stop or to control. And so to a larger extent, what we just have to do is accept them, accept particularly things in the outside world that may be kind of crumbling institutions, structures, that kind of thing. But on the sort of the upside, we are also seeing this flowering, this enormous flowering of the internal world, which is actually how things kind of are in the spiritual realm. We're kind of born, like Plato tells us, upside down. So we tend to have things the wrong way around. We put too much emphasis on the material world, and actually the material world is the ephemeral world. It's the world that changes. It's the spiritual that is eternal. So I think what you're being asked to do is to really sort of like turn things on their head, to sort of let go of any attachments to material things, which is quite difficult for an earth sign like Taurus, a fixed earth, and just try to sort of go with the flow. If things are going to crumble now, we have to let them, because the more we resist change, the more painful it is. So just kind of something to bear in mind. And then the other sort of one of the main focuses of this this full moon is, as I say, it's that energy of Saturn, which is going to be in a loose square to it's coming off of the square to Mars, which is also in Aries, kind of here. So for you, Capricorn, I think is your 9th house. So let's just have a look at. Interesting, yeah, definitely. So we've got Rubeus again, and so that tells me that the thing that you're worried about is this kind of crumbling of institutions or beliefs. And it may be, as I say, an educational institution, because we've got the 9th house here of higher education, which is usually universities, colleges, that kind of thing, as well as institutions like religious or cultural institutions, the law, and sometimes foreign organizations, like multinational corporations, that kind of thing. So I do feel as though that is potentially related to whatever it is that's kind of got you, kind of up in your head. But I think, as I say, Saturn is kind of, because it's so close to Pluto, we're kind of we've gone back to that energy that we had in sort of January, February, when we had that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and that set the tone for the whole year, really, which was all about this need for institutions and structures to transform. Pluto is all about death and rebirth, and of course Saturn is all about structures, particularly those that govern everyday life and the material world. So structures of power, structures to do with banking, lifestyles, all that kind of thing, the underpinnings, the skeleton of our lives, and those are going to be crumbling. This is something that's in the astrology, and I think we have to kind of accept that the next few months are going to be quite volatile, as those changes that were instituted back in April, particularly with that 444 gateway, really start to actually take effect in the world. So they've kind of happened in the spiritual dimensions, and now it's filtering down into the physical. And in order for a kind of a rebirth to happen, we need to have this transition where old structures fall away so that new ones can sort of replace them. So that is just something I think to kind of bear in mind, over the next couple of weeks, and certainly over the next month. Yes. I'm trying to think what else there is in terms of the astrology. I think those are kind of like the main things. I mean, let's just look at money, because obviously for you that's going to be a major issue. Okay, so here we've got, this is 2nd and 8th houses, which are both about money. This is about your earned income. This is about shared resources. So here in your 2nd house, we've got puer, so we've got either a fresh start when it comes to money. So it could be that you're kind of walking away from a job, for example, starting a new job, or it could be that you've lost your job and that you are in dispute with your employers. Puer can be about conflict, or you're just kind of having to stand up for yourself. Maybe you feel that you're owed kind of back pay, or you've been shortchanged as far as a freelance job is concerned, and you just need to sort of stand up for yourself. And then here in the 8th house, we have populace. So this suggests, again, some kind of group financial endeavor. And I'm kind of thinking about, for example, like a joint, like a group lawsuit. So say, for example, there's a group of you that all do the same kind of work, like a trade union, for example. Maybe you're having to kind of sue an employer. I mean, legal matters is here, and we've got Castor here in your 6th house. So maybe you've had to kind of take your employer to court as a sort of a collective in order to get what's owed to you. That's certainly possible. Yes, so it does look as though right now, money is kind of very much at the forefront of your consciousness. And as I say, this could be why we've got the energies that we've got in your 6th and your 12th house. Now, as I say, it's not unusual energy, because we are talking about, Mercury's just got into Scorpio, and this is quite intense energy, and it is all about this kind of, as I say, this death and rebirth, having to get very real with ourselves, having to sort of be very honest and kind of raw in a way. And so I kind of expect this to filter into the types of events that are kind of happening in the world as well. And we've also got a Mercury retrograde that's coming up later in the month. So as I say, not the easiest of energies, and I don't think that your reading will be alone in this sense. So don't feel, like, oh gosh, why did I get such a terrible reading? I fully expect the other readings to be, just as sort of challenging. But let's just get some trinkets just to clarify. Right, so for the moon, we've got the garden. So again, I do feel as though whatever the situation is that you may be worried about, or where you feel you've lost out, has to do with some group activity, something in the public domain. Possibly it's to do with something that's happened worldwide, such as the knock-on effects from coronavirus, and that has affected, potentially your job, and this may be why you're in dispute here. But I do think that it's kind of saying that you're definitely not alone here, and that's reiterating this populist energy here. So I think definitely join forces with others if you're thinking about it, because you'll get further than just on a kind of individual level. Okay, so for the sun in the 6th house, we've got the stork. So this suggests that even though changes may not be that pleasant in the short term, that they're actually for the best long term. This for me is the symbol of positive changes, things changing for the better. So sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. But I do think that, we have to bear in mind that the sun in Libra is all about things balancing out in the end. So as I say, Saturn is exalted in Libra, and for that reason, this the Lord of Karma. So cause and effect, if you kind of lose out now, you'll certainly be repaid later. If people mistreat you, for example, in the workplace, they will get their comeuppance in the end. It could also point to a female boss, because this is a maternal figure. So possibly you've got a female looking out for you in the workplace, somebody who's sort of higher up. So that's something else to consider. And Kase isn't always necessarily about a negative event, even though it does tend to be about feeling isolated or imprisoned. It can also be about the need for self-discipline and mastery. So, a female figure could possibly offer some advice, in that regard. Okay, let's have one for Rubeus. So we've got the fox here. It does seem to me as though you, on some level, have been kind of the victim of dishonesty, trickery, cunning, something that's unlawful, something that's on in terms of principles is not fair. Because the fox is usually quite cunning, and it very often is a colleague, a work colleague, who is a little bit kind of wily, shall we say, um, who doesn't have a problem, say, taking credit for your work, or who maybe has slighted you, or kind of blamed you for something behind your back that was actually their fault, that kind of thing. So I can kind of understand why you might be brooding about that. And I would certainly, take action to try and sort of remedy the situation, if that is the case. Or kind of get them back in their own way, with that sort of fox energy. I think just means maybe you also need to be a little bit more careful around this person, a little bit clever and cunning yourself. Okay, so for Pue, we've got the star. So yes, I think what it's saying is that you do need to kind of stand up for yourself when it comes to money and earned income and resources, as well as self-esteem. But here I think this is telling you, that the star is telling you that you are being divinely guided. You do have help in the spiritual realm, kind of guides that have your back and that will help you to get through this, okay. And this can also point sometimes to being in the spotlight. So it's possible that you have some talent or gift that you need to develop. Maybe you don't have confidence in that ability, and you need to sort of develop it, because it could actually lead to, kind of prominence. Nice. So what was I saying about prominence? We've got the sun here. So this is for populace, and the sun again is all about success, joy, happiness, things working out in the end. So I do kind of think that if there is some kind of legal dispute going on, perhaps with an employer or with a work colleague, some sort of lawsuit, that things will work in your favor. The key, I think, is to either say take the matter to the press if you feel that you're not getting justice through the court system, or it could be teaming up with other colleagues, like-minded colleagues, who've perhaps also been mistreated, and sort of going in for a kind of a joint suit. I think that's possibly what this is about, is some kind of legal matter. But let's get you some parting advice. Just trying to find my oracle cards. So we're going to have some advice from the Universe Has Your Back by Bernstein. I've just seen 23:23 on the clock, so 5 may be an important number for you. It's usually the number of change, so I do think that October is going to be a major month of transition as we move from that, from the equinox into the next season. It is a kind of a time of shifts and changes. Oopsie. Right, well, those cards want to come out, so let's see what they have to say. Okay, so the first one is energy flows where my intention goes. So I think that's something to bear in mind here with this 12th house, because the 12th house is all about the psyche and the consciousness. So just bear that in mind. Try not to sort of obsess too much in a negative way, catastrophize, because that it won't sort of help your state of mind or your ability to rest and get some sleep, and B, it's going to block up the energy that needs to flow, so that you can kind of get your just dues. Okay, and then here we've got obstacles or detours in the right direction, which I think is a very nice card for the Sun in Libra here in your 6th house with that Corsair. So yes, if things are kind of cut away now, if they fall away, or if you feel blocked, with that Saturn-Mars square, then I think just see that as kind of redirection, obstacles or detours in the right direction. So it kind of implies that whatever this was you kind of learned your lesson there. Your soul lesson was learned. You needed to kind of move on, and even though it might not feel very comfortable to have to kind of sort of move on, especially if you're afraid of the unknown, just know that you are kind of heading in the right direction. And I think the stork here should offer some comfort, that these changes will turn out to be positive in the end. It's just a little bit scary when you're not really sure where you're going. So then the final bit of advice is, when I lean toward love, I am led. So I think that's a really lovely kind of end message here. And I think what it's really talking about is, this energy that we've got here in the 2nd and the 8th houses, which is just to say that, the universe wants you to kind of focus on love, light, and sort of seeing the kind of the upside of things, rather than worrying too much here with this Rubeus energy about fears about the future, that kind of thing. And I think that when you get into that sort of energy, things will flow. Now here, don't forget that we've got this wonderful Jupiter Neptune sextile coming up mid-October, I think around about the 12th, and this is the final pass of this aspect, which happened in February and then in July. So, things from there may kind of come to fruition. So don't assume that everything is bad. Focus on that wonderful Neptune energy, which I think is all about the cultivation of the internal spirit, of our connection to our higher selves. And it's from there that we're going to manifest this new earth. So I think really have faith and trust that things will work out in the end, even though in the external world it seems as though everything's falling apart. The opposite is actually true, and so be led by what's happening internally instead. So I hope that's been helpful, Taurus. As I say, slightly different kind of reading. Let me know if you've enjoyed it, but sending lots of love, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks.